Hello everyone, welcome to another Visual Arts Mississauga Art Reach activity. So my name is Ankshika and I'm an instructor at Visual Arts Mississauga. We are so happy that you and your teachers could join us today. So please make sure that you have your materials ready to draw and follow along as best you can with my step-by-step instructions. If your teacher has a question, they can pop it in the comments and we'll be sure to answer them. So let's get ready to draw. So today we are going to be drawing some comic book lettering, and I have my sample right here, which I'm going to explain after I go over the materials. So today we are going to be using a pencil, a ruler, an eraser, and some markers. And today our drawing is going to focus on perspective, so specifically 1-point perspective. So the first thing I want everyone to do is think of a short word. So this could be 3 to 4 letters. It could also be your initials that you'd like to put into perspective today. So my sample right here, I picked the word love, and I'm going to explain how I created this. So before we get started, I wanted to go over what perspective is. So perspective is used to create the illusion of space and form on a flat work of art. So in linear perspective, we use lines to help us draw objects that look like they're 3D. So you'll see over here, I used lines extending out from the back of my letter to make each letter look like it was 3D and it was situated in space. So 1-point perspective means that the lines we use to structure our drawing are going to converge at 1 point. So right here, this is my vanishing point. And all the lines from each letter converge at this 1 point. And similarly, right here with my word love, every line leads to a vanishing point that was right here. So we're going to get started. So you can grab your sheet of paper, a ruler, a pencil, and an eraser for the first part. So the first thing we have to do is pick where we'd like our vanishing point to go. So you can pick the center of your page, the left side of your page, or the right side. So I'm going to pick the center, and I'm going to put it right here at the top, and I'm going to make it nice and big so you can see it as well. The next thing I like to do is draw a line that all my letters are going to sit on. So I'm going to use my ruler, draw a straight line right here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to draw out my letters. So for this part, we want to make sure that we're drawing out capital letters because that's what we're going to make into our block letters like this. So you want to avoid cursive letters or anything like that. We want nice, big capital letters like this. So my word is going to be love. So the first thing I like to do is draw out my letters normally just to make sure they can all fit on my page. So that will be where my L goes. Next, I'll draw my O. I'll make that a bit smaller. Next, I'll draw out my next letter. And you can use your ruler for this part as well if you'd like. And lastly, my E. My E will go right here. So I'm trying to make sure that my letters are around the same height. And because of the guideline that we drew earlier, this line right here, we already know that they're going to end in the same place, which is exactly what we want. So I'm going to finish off my E right here. I'm just going to make a little marking for where the bottom part of it ends. So now that I have my letters, I can make them into my shapes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my L. So at the moment, I'm just deciding how thick I want my letter to be. So I think about that much is good. And then I'm going to start to make these lines into a shape. So first my L. Right here. And next I'm going to draw my O. And as I'm doing this, I'm trying my best to make sure that all of my letters are the same width. So the same thickness. So right here, I'm trying to make sure that is about the same as the thickness of the L right here. So I have my L and my O. I'm going to move on to my next letter. About right there. You might have different letters if you're doing your initials or a 3-letter word. You could do a word like joy or hope. Okay, and my last letter right here. So I'm going to mark off there. You might have to do a bit of erasing at the end, and that's completely okay. So I'm going to finish off my E over here. I always like to start with just a simple line drawing, just to make sure everything fits. And that way I don't have to erase all of my letters once I've made them into block letters. Okay, so right here. And now I'm going to erase these extra lines, so we don't need them anymore. So right here. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is start putting all of these letters into linear perspective. So as I said earlier, each of the points of our letter are all going to meet at our vanishing point. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to go to each corner of my first letter. So my first letter is L. So I'm going to line up my ruler to the vanishing point and the corner that I want to connect to it. I'm just going to move this over to this side of it. Okay. So I've lined up this corner with my vanishing point right here, and I'm going to draw a line connecting it like this. And I'm going to do the same with the next line, with the next corner. So from this corner, again, to my vanishing point. And you're going to keep angling your ruler from the point that you'd like to connect all the way to that vanishing point. So I'm doing this point right here, and I'm going to connect that like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this corner right here. So I'm going to angle my ruler from this corner to my vanishing point. I'm going to draw a line. So you'll see for this one, it actually hits my O a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip the part that would cover the O. So rather than drawing the line like this, what I could do is I could just skip that part with my ruler. So I don't have to erase it after. So the next thing I'm going to do is this point right here. So I don't need to do this point over here because it would just go through the letter and you wouldn't see it. It would meet up with this line. So you don't have to do every corner, just the ones that are going to show up. So I'm going to angle my ruler from this point to my vanishing point one more time. And again, my ruler is going through my O. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to skip over the part that's touching my O and continue the line above it, like this. So the next thing I'm going to do is work on my O. And you're probably wondering how we're going to do the O because it has a bit of a curve to it. So what you're going to do is if you have a curved letter, you're going to line it up with the edge of the curve like this. So I'm going to pick a spot. I think I'm going to do it right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and connect that line. And then same thing on this side. So I'm going to line up the edge of my ruler with the edge of my O, and I'm going to connect it all the way to my vanishing point right here. So these lines we're not going to need anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and erase them. It's good to erase your lines that you're not going to need as you go, and that way it gets less confusing at the end. Okay. So I have my O right here. And next, I'm going to work on this letter. So I'm going to go ahead and connect this corner to my vanishing point. And then same with this corner over here. So again, angling my ruler from the corner to the point. Next, I'm going to go down here. Now this part will get cut off a bit because part of my ruler is hitting the O. So I know that I only have to draw my line up till here because the rest will be behind the O. So I'm going to go ahead like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line from this point, and lastly from this one. Okay, and now moving on to our E. So once again, I like to always start at the top corner right here. So I'm going to go ahead and angle my ruler from the corner of the E all the way to my point. And then I'm going to go over to this point over here. And once more, angle my ruler from the corner to my vanishing point. Right here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to this corner right here. And once again, I'm going to angle my ruler from the corner, this point right here, all the way to here. Okay, and now it's these lines right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead to this corner and angle my ruler. And this corner over here, and angle my ruler to that vanishing point. So now for these points over here, same thing, you wouldn't see them because they would be behind the other lines of the E. So for this line, for example, you wouldn't see it because it would go behind the letter. So I don't have to connect it. For this line over here, I can connect it a bit, but it would mostly be disappear behind this letter. So I don't need to do that one as well. Same with this one, it would be behind my E. So those are all the points I need. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to end off these letters. So you'll see over here, in order to make them look like 3D letters, we don't need the whole line that ends at the point. So what we're going to do is we're going to end each letter so that it looks like a comic book style letter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide how tall I want these shadows to be. So do I want them to go all the way up here? Do I want them to be down here? And everything past this line will be erased. So I think I'm going to end my letters off right here. And you can end yours in a different place. It's completely up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by ending my L. So to end my L, what you're going to do is you're going to try to get your ruler as straight as possible. And I'm going to draw one line right there. And the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to draw a line going down like that and across. When I'm drawing my vertical lines, I'm trying to make sure that they're parallel to these lines over here. And that will make it look, that will keep the perspective intact. So right here is my next line. And I'm going to end off with one more over here. Just like that. So I would erase all of these lines at the end. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to end off my O. So since my O is made of curved lines rather than straight lines, you're going to end it off the same way with a curved line. So I'm going to again decide how thick I want my shadow to be and draw a curved line to end it off like this. Same for here. So I'm going to go ahead and end off this letter right at the top here. And now for this one, I'm actually going to bring this line down here and draw a diagonal line so it matches up with this one. So I'm going to angle it so it's parallel with this line right here. And all of these would be erased. And lastly, for my E, the E is probably the simplest one out of all of them to end, because we just need one line right here. So now I'm going to go ahead and erase all of these lines. And you can go ahead and do the same for your for your words. So I'm erasing all the lines that come after where I ended off my letter. And at this point, you can start to think about what color you want to fill your letter in with. So for my letters, I picked blue, but you could also do each letter in a different color if you'd like. So now would be a good time to start thinking about that as you're erasing those extra lines. So right here, and then just that little line over there. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by outlining these letters using a marker. So I think I'm going to get my markers out. And for the L, I'm going to use orange. So I'm going to start off by outlining my L. I like to use a ruler for this part, just to make sure that we don't lose the angle of any of those lines that we drew. So I'm going over all my pencil lines with my marker. I like to leave my vanishing point on sometimes until the end, and that's because when you're outlining your letters in marker, I just like to angle my ruler once more to that point, just to make sure that it's still lining up. And right here, and then I'm going to outline this black line right here. And continuing all the way around my letter. So I think I'm going to have my next letter in blue, and I'll just alternate between the orange and the blue. Orange and blue are complementary colors, so they really stand out when they're together. So that's why I'm going to use both of those today. Okay, so my L is done. I'm going to go ahead and do my other letter in orange as well. Once again, using my ruler when I'm going over my lines in pencil. Right here. Angling it over here as well. Until all my letters are outlined. Right at the top, this line over here. Connecting my top corners. Okay, and now I'm going to switch to the blue. Since these lines are part of my O, I skipped doing them in orange. So next I'm going to outline my O. going all the way around. And we're going to fill them in with a technique called hatching, which is a series of parallel lines that we're going to use to fill in the shadows of our letter. I'm going to go ahead and continue this O, filling in the middle as well. And all the way to the top. So now that I have a straight line again, I can use my ruler. And finishing off with that curved line at the top. And one last letter right here. So my E, I'm going to be using a ruler again. Going over all those lines. I'm going to work on the letter first, and then I'll work on the shadow next. So just finishing off the bottom over here. Don't worry about outlining this baseline unless you'd like to. That was more of a guideline for us, or where to end off our letters so that they're all sitting on the same line. And sometimes it can be a bit harder to eyeball it. So finishing the top off over here, connecting these 2 points together. And lastly, for the inner shadow of my E. Okay, and now all my letters are outlined. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add in our directional lines right here. So if you don't want to add in directional lines, you could also use dots to fill in your shadow. So if you were using dots to fill in your shadow, what you would do, say this is my L, right here. If you wanted to use dots, you would fill it in like this. So we're going to leave our letters the way they are. So it's just the shadows that we're filling in. So I'm going to use directional lines. And I'm going to start off with my orange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the direction that my shape is going in. And I'm going to add a series of parallel lines. Next, I'm going to fill in this part. So you could use your ruler if you'd like for the bigger areas. And I'm going to go ahead and fill in my shape. Going all the way to the end. Now for this part right here, it's going to be lines like this. So going horizontally. I'm going to go ahead and fill it in as well. So this is what I have so far. And I'm going to go all the way to the top. And then for this section right here. And for that section, I don't need a ruler, so I'm just going to fill it in like this. Okay, next I'm going to do the lines for my O. So since my O is curved, my lines are also going to be curved. I'm going to go ahead and fill in that shadow. And now for the middle of your O, you could fill it in with straight lines if you have an O, like I do. So if you have an A, you could do the same thing for little opening at the top. If you have a P, it would also work like that. I'm going all the way to the top. And filling in my letter with those directional lines. Okay, next I'm going to work on my next letter over here. So back to orange. And first I'm going to start off with my directional lines on this side. So again, they're going to be going vertically. So all the way down like this. Okay, and for this one over here, it's actually going to go diagonally. So I'm following this line right here, which is a diagonal line, and this one over here. So I'm going to start on this side. And I'm going to go ahead and fill in this part of my letter. Okay, and now for the last parts at the top. So those are going to be like the top of the L right here. So going across horizontally. And one more over here as well. Okay, and now we're on to my last letter, the E. So going vertically over here again to fill in the outer edge of my shadow. And since this letter is covering a bit of my E, I'm just going to stop whenever I hit that letter. I don't want to go through it. And I'm going to continue the same lines over here, going all the way to the back of this shadow. Okay, next up here, I'm going to go across, so horizontally again. So all the way across right here. And next, I'm going to fill in these areas by going diagonally, since this is the line that's directing my direction. And I don't need a ruler for this part. I'm going to fill in this part and my last shadow right over here with my last set of directional lines. So that is the end of our comic book lettering project for today. Thank you so much for following along and drawing with me. If you would like to watch these workshops again, they will be available on Visual Arts Mississauga's YouTube channel all the way until December 18th. We would also love to see your artwork and give a special shout out to your class and school. So teachers, if you could please email artwork photos to artreach@visualartsmississauga.com. If you enjoyed this workshop, book an Artreach workshop for your class. It's 2 hours of creative fun with all the materials included. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next time.